Daniel Rogov.
Mr. Rogov, on the occasion of knowing you now for 2 decades, I am somehow reminded of the movie Casablanca when Rick recalls to Ilsa their first meeting. I remember every detail. The Germans wore gray, you wore blue. In our case, we met just after the fall of communism. The only thing I remember about your outfit is your Palladium boots, which I think you have on now too. These have been an eventful 2 decades in our world. We have witnessed large-scale terror, wars, hurricanes, tsunamis, peace agreements, the rise of technology such as cell phones, internet, Wi-Fi, LCD TVs, etc. We have seen the deaths of princesses and pop stars. Politicians have come and gone, and in Israel's case, politicians have come and gone and come again. In short, much has happened. But we both have concentrated on much more important issues than these, on wine, of course. 20 years ago, the wine and food scene in Israel was still in its infancy. You could count the number of really good restaurants in Israel on one hand. The other hand was free to count the number of really good wines. I was told many times in my first year in Israel that a certain Chinese restaurant in Tiberias was one of the best restaurants in the country. And it's a bit frightening to think that it also might have been true. Anand Levy and I, just yesterday, were talking about the language of wine writing. 20 years ago, you and we were also trying to do the same thing. You were moving people away from hedonistic evaluations of wine and to more descriptive evaluations. And this wasn't easy. After all, how many Israelis knew the difference between blueberry, raspberry, blackberry, red currant, and blackcurrant? A new language of wine had to be developed. I still have a friend who, upon hearing your name mentioned by anyone, has to say, "Dum-dum-niot shoro, dum-dum-niot shoro." It's somewhat ironic that I stand before you now. After all, you're a critic, and I'm one of the people whose work you publicly critique. Not a naturally easy relationship, but I must say that as a winemaker, I really do understand the need for wine critics. I've always believed that we both have clear jobs. My job is to make wine, and your job is to tell the public what you think of specific wines. My philosophy was always to concentrate on my job and to let you get on with your job. People may or may not know that I never complained to you about the occasional negative review, nor did I thank you for the good reviews. And while we never talked about reviews, we always found something to talk about, even besides arguing about which one of our Hebrew is worse. After all, we've attended countless events and tastings together over the years. I was always happy and sometimes even relieved to sit next to you at events. I could always count on a convivial, entertaining time. Daniel, of course, has countless stories to tell. If someone would raise a suspicious eyebrow, Daniel was likely to say, "I am not a liar, I'm an embellisher, and there is a critical difference between the two." I recently read something from the author Isabel Fonseca and thought of you. I quote loosely, "Embellishments are intended to give pleasure. Embellishers want to amuse you. They want to amuse themselves. They want to show you a good time. This is beyond hospitality. This is art." From these 2 decades of perspective, I can honestly say that the Israeli wine industry is very lucky to have you, Daniel. First of all, when you started, wine culture in Israel barely existed. That means that people required guidance. You were there to do a very important job. But as time went on, you played an even more important role. Almost all up-and-coming wine regions have had their own legendary Rogov, their own wine critic who largely concentrated on covering the wines from that specific area. These critics have become de facto spokespeople for that area. People like James Halliday for Australia, John and Erica Platter for South Africa, Peter Saunders for New Zealand, and Tony Aspel for Canada. The fact is that wines from emerging areas always take time to get accepted by the wine establishment. Before they are accepted, they receive little coverage, and the coverage they do get is often negatively prejudiced. Meaning that wines from emerging areas are often unfairly treated and get scores often lower than their real quality. And Israel is no different. In addition to being an emerging area, we have a couple of other obstacles to overcome. The first is politics. The second is the conception that Israel consists of camels wandering around a desert. The third is the belief that Israeli wine means kosher wine, which means low-quality sweet wine. And while Israel's wines were sometimes treated unfairly, you were there to stand up for them. We have all seen the discussions about whether or not you rank Israeli wines too high. I, for one, compliment you on your scores and for standing up to your critics. Why do we sometimes automatically assume that people that can have some natural prejudice against Israeli wines are more accurate in assessing their quality than a local critic? To me, it doesn't make any sense. Preconceptions and snobbery are not foreign to the wine trade, and somebody has to stand up to them. You, Daniel, have become our industry's vital singer of praises, and I salute you for that. We have seen a slow but constant shift in perceptions of Israeli wine in recent years. Even 5 years ago, I never would have believed that an Israeli wine would soon be in the Wine Spectator Top 100 Wines of the Year, that Robert Parker's website would soon be publishing biannual reports on Israeli wine. Sure, Israel has reached a certain critical mass of good producers and good wines, but I think it's undeniable that an important part of our industry's ongoing increasing reputation is you, David. Your book, Rogov's Guide to Israeli Wines, has made our industry real and serious to many. Your book filled a very important function for our industry. Suddenly, there is a thorough and authoritative source to which people can refer. No longer is high-quality wine a rumor. High-quality wine is now surveyed and documented, and that source of information is alive, updated every year. I feel your book also spurred local producers to make better quality wine. Sure, getting a good review in a newspaper is great, but books have much longer lifespans. Who doesn't want to get a positive Rogov review preserved for eternity in a book? It is hard to overstate the value of such a book to our local industry. And this, I think, is your great achievement. Within Israel, you have made wine more accessible to the public, and internationally, you have made Israeli wines more accessible to global audiences. Of course, this took a lot of work on your behalf. I remember fondly your annual visits to the Golan Heights Winery. Our typical visit usually consisted of your politely suffering through yet another visit to the vineyards, with often technical explanations of some of our projects. And you don't know this, Daniel, but you're the only person I ever let smoke in my car. A true sign of respect. Then we'd go to the winery for a rather long tasting. On your last visit, we tasted 61 wines together, only interrupted by your going outside occasionally to breathe some fresh air. During these tastings, we would sometimes show you wines off the record. We knew we could get your honest opinion regarding wines in development, and also knew that we could completely trust you to keep the off-the-record wines confidential. You took the time to listen and to understand. And I always felt you really did understand who we are and what. Thank you for what you've accomplished. Few people in the history of the Israeli wine industry have matched your contribution. And on a more personal note, I'd like to thank you for being the gentleman that you are, for being amusing and great company, for always having a good restaurant recommendation, and most of all, I'd like to thank you for having made these past 20 years of my life more enjoyable and more fun. I started with Casablanca, and I'll end it with it too. Here's looking at you, kid.